That's right. I'd like to call this regular council meeting of August 23rd to order. We have no public hearing today, scheduled for today, and I have a couple announcements that I would like to make. The first one is the roundabout intersection construction project has started, and there will be regular traffic updates on the city's website and the city's Facebook page. I believe it's updated every Friday morning to tell you what's going to be happening in the week to come. So just to encourage that, and we are trying to mitigate any downsides for the businesses in the area by rerouting and signage and things like that. But there is going to be disruption, unfortunately, but we all have to look forward to the project being finished and being better. I would like to make a few comments on the situation that's happened over the past week and more with the unfortunate killing of the bears in town. First thing that I would like to do is offer thanks and support to the conservation officers that have unfortunately, and protective services that have unfortunately had to deal with these unfortunate situations. And I think that it just strengthens what the city wants, in that we want to have full-time conservation officers stationed here in Revelstoke to help us. We will be, and we're trying to get a meeting with the Ministry of Environment at the Union of BC Municipality Convention coming up at the end of September, and we will be putting our case forward again like we have in the past to get conservation officers here. Conservation officers will be able to help us not only with the bear situation, but with other wildlife issues that happen in and around Revelstoke. But bears are at the forefront of everybody's minds right now, and I look back on where this community was in the mid and late 80s as far as bear smart, which we were not. And you look at some of the figures that have been published in 1986, 40 bears were killed, in 87, 35, to a high of 52 in 1988. Bringing in bear aware and bear smart practices drastically reduced the amount of bears that have been killed over time, and we became a bear smart community. As a matter of fact, we were a model community that a lot of other places emulated our bear aware, and so we were one of the leading communities, and it's thanks to people back then like Anita Coffin, like Lonnie Parker, and all the people that stepped up over the years and volunteered and helped. But it was the community that bought into it. We have embraced bears as part of our heritage, as part of our marketing for our community. We live in bear country, and we're happy and proud to live in bear country. We seem to have lost our way a little bit, and what we're doing as a community is we have to go back to those basic bear aware, bear smart principles, and so that we can cohabitate properly, safely with the bears. The city recognized early in August that we were heading into a more difficult time with what was happening in the bush as far as the berry crop, and we were proactively targeting neighborhoods that have a higher incidence of bear sightings. We followed up in these areas after giving warnings and brochures out to the communities, and found that the majority of people were complying. Others that were not were given fines. We have again stepped up our commissionaires and our bylaw enforcement to ensure that people are looking after their garbage, looking after their fruit trees, because these are the primary bear attractants that are causing all the problems. And it's unfortunate that the conservation officers are the ones that have to deal with this to the degree that they had. And I feel sorry for them, but they have no choice. It's not the conservation officers that are killing the bears, it's our community that's killing the bears. And I can't stress enough that it's the community that's going to stop killing the bears by getting back to those Bear Smart principles. So we have been proactive and we're doing a lot more, but it's the residents that have to police themselves, they have to police their neighbors, and they have to police their neighborhood. We have different ways of them communicating to us through Facebook, through See Click Fix, contacting the city, contacting your neighbors, anything that you see. But again, we are going to get back to those Bear Smart principles, and we will be taking these concerns to the government and looking at getting conservation officers reinstated back here in Revelstoke and helping us. I need a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor English, Councillor Lando. All those in favor? Motion is carried. I need a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of August 9th. Councillor Sauls, Councillor Nixon. You did have your hand up, didn't you? Yes. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes of that council meeting of August 9th?
Your Worship, just to report out to council and to the public that the Thomas Brook boundary extension moved forward at the CSRD last Thursday with the funds approved from the CSRD. So that's a good thing, the $150,000 from the Economic Opportunity Fund and the $150,000 from the Community Works Fund.
Castax. Yeah, very good. Thank you, and thank you for representing me at the Regional District this past Thursday. Any other business arising from those minutes? Delegations, we have Jill Zacharias, the Social Development Coordinator. Jill, you have the floor.
Thanks. So no PowerPoint today.
Oh.
Just going to talk. So good afternoon. It's a challenge to wrap up a year's work in just a few minutes, but this is the time of year that I report out on the work of the Social Development Committee. In your meeting package today, you have our year-end progress report, as well as the 2016-17 work plan for council approval. And on the table before you, that is some presents today. You have some tangible results of a couple of projects, updated guides for seniors and newcomers, and a detailed update of the social goals of our integrated community sustainability plan. Every once in a while, I step back and regroup and try to understand what the actual impact of the Social Development Committee has been in our community. To better understand this, I looked back 15 years to the first Community Development Action Plan produced in 2001. This plan contained Revelstoke's first social sector action plan. The primary objective in the 2001 plan was to establish a social development network, a distinct entity to take the lead and implement key social action plan initiatives, compile information about existing services for distribution, liaise with service providers and community members to identify gaps in service, develop community-based solutions to address those gaps, or support the creation of new organizations when appropriate, assist organizations to access funding when needed, and advocate for citizens requiring support. Flash forward to the present, and I realize that this is what we're doing and more. The first objective in our work plan is all about facilitating communication and collaboration to better work together on community social challenges and opportunities. Through the Social Development Committee, we have an established forum for bringing social issues to the table, as well as the capacity to act and move things forward through planning, development, and implementation of community-based solutions. Our website, revelsokesocialdevelopment.org, is an online library and repository of resources and information, including up-to-date directories, such as you have today, and planning documents. We have a vast email network, an information sharing system. The Directory of Social Services is updated at least once a year. In 2001, there were virtually no multi-sector groups sitting down and working together to tackle particular social issues. This was just before the Early Childhood Development Committee got started. Today, we have more than 14 tables where people from numerous organizations and a variety of backgrounds are working hard on specific issues together. As well, over the year, I personally attended over 50 group meetings and had over 80 one-on-one or smaller meetings with social sector personnel. You might think that's a lot of meetings, but it's all about communication. We have had the capacity to bring significant funding and expertise to our community to support many things and to better support our service providers, community-based organizations and partners, as well as our citizens. This past year, we brought in over $130,000 to support a range of projects. This year, as part of the work plan review, I asked Social Development Committee members to provide input on what they felt was the most important role for the coordinator position. The consensus was that the position represents an important voice for social issues in our community, facilitates information sharing and connections within the sector, as well as ongoing proactive planning, which has led to positive change. They felt the role builds capacity within the community to address social development and serves as a conduit between the many working groups striving to create sustainable change in our community. But what does this mean? It means that people are communicating and have a better understanding of what is available to them in our community. Organizations are working together, pooling expertise and resources. There is little to no duplication of services in our community. Collaboration is ever deepening. People know who to call to get information. It's like having our own little mini LinkedIn in Revelstoke. Further, the Social Development Network has expanded beyond Revelstoke. We have strengthened communication and a productive exchange of resources with a variety of organizations across the region, the province, and even the country. So this also speaks to objectives 4, 5, and 6 in my work plan. Objectives 2 and 3 refer to the Integrated Community Sustainability Plan. So this year I actually went beyond my work plan requirements and completed another update of the social goals of the ICSP. It was a big project. And it was rewarding to see how far we've come as a community even since 2013. Hopefully both the data and the results of the community consultation will feed into this year's OCP review. So we've had the capacity to do all this high-level planning and then act on priorities in those plans. As you know, we established the Youth Initiative and Youth Liaison position as an upstream preventative approach to problem substance use, focusing on meaningful youth engagement and support for all youth. Now we have established the Child and Youth Mental Health and Substance Use Collaborative Local Action Team to better serve those who need help most. So for this upcoming year, we have another $100,000 in funding, and we will be using a significant portion of this to deliver free local training and programs for service providers, partners in the school district, as well as families in our community. We hope that this training will have long-term benefits for our community. Since 2008, as you know, we established the Seniors Volunteer Coordinator position with the Seniors Association, along with many other initiatives to help seniors in our community and ensure that we continue to be an age-friendly community. This year, we partnered with the Seniors Association to produce the updated local seniors resource guide, which you have before you. And that project was 6 years ago we did the first one, so it was time. And we also facilitated a partnership between Interior Health and our City Parks and Rec Department to deliver mobility classes at the community center for those with mobility challenges. We've been actively engaged in trying to ensure that citizens old and new feel a strong sense of belonging, and that we are a diverse, inclusive community. From establishing Welcome Week as an annual event, which took place again this year and was successful, to welcome to revelstoke.org, the website, the Newcomers Guide, which is literally hot off the press. I got Lakeside to print these just for you. We're printing 1,000 copies, and they'll be in our community in the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, we've got the Safe Spaces Society, the Volunteer Fair, and just this year supporting the development of a community protocol to address hate and bias-based incidents. The work around poverty reduction has been incredibly challenging and rewarding at the same time. Our 2-year financial literacy project was completed this year, but left an incredible legacy of resources and strengthened connections that will see this work continuing in our community. I can't stress the importance of this project. The website is on my progress report, and if you check out the website, you'll see it's just a wealth of resources. It was a great pleasure to work together with Community Futures to deliver the Community Economic Development Regional Forum on Understanding the Economics of Poverty Reduction. We were honored by a visit in April from Jackie Teagart, MLA, the province's appointed liaison for poverty reduction, and Kathy Bergen-McLeod, the head of the provincial NCFD Poverty Reduction Initiative, both of whom wanted to find out how we are accomplishing the work. In the meantime, we've been working with CBT to support the Regional Poverty Reduction Network and with Vibrant Communities Canada to establish a provincial community of practice for which I've been asked to co-chair, so that will launch in mid-December. Personally, I've come to see poverty reduction as one of the greatest social development challenges and economic development opportunities of our time. With 1 in 7 people living in poverty in Canada, it takes a huge toll on our local, regional, and national economies, the health and well-being of our communities, the strength of our social fiber, and our general prosperity. No matter which lens you apply, poverty is an issue we all have a vested interest in solving. A critical piece of this is ensuring that everyone does their part, and the role of higher levels of government is absolutely critical. Today in your meeting package under correspondence, you have a request from the BC Poverty Reduction Coalition to support a UBCM resolution calling on the province to adopt a comprehensive and accountable provincial poverty reduction strategy. I urge you to support the resolution, both now and at UBCM. In 2009, Revelstoke City Council signed the BC Poverty Reduction Coalition's open letter calling for the same. 7 years has passed. It's very important to continue this advocacy and ensure the province does its part. Throughout the years, we have continually assessed the status of recommended actions in all social plans. We have gone back to the community again and again to check in on social priorities. And of course, the Social Development Committee cannot do it all. Our role has been to address gaps in the community that are not being addressed by others. It has been truly amazing to see the successes of the Early Childhood Development Committee, the great work of the Literacy Action Committee, the entire food security movement, and the Community Housing Society projects. It has been great to see the ripple effect of people and organizations working together for common goals, to see the gradual engagement of the business community around social initiatives, and strengthen partnerships all the way around. But again, why is this important? In 2001, key community goals focused on improving quality of life of citizens in our community, as well as improving the wellness of citizens. And from as far back as 1993, 7 of 9 community priorities articulated in our vision statement are social. In the 1980s, community economic development emerged as an alternative to conventional approaches to economic development. It's a participatory, holistic process, and one that includes social and environmental as well as economic development, and one that leads to positive, concrete changes in communities. With people like Jeff Battersby and Doug Weir at the helm, community economic development was something that Revelstoke embraced. And I remember I came to Revelstoke in 1992. Over the past 25 years, the City of Revelstoke's Department of Community Economic Development and Alan Mason, they have done so much work to improve the quality of life for our citizens and the viability of our community as a whole. And right now, we're actually doing really, really well because of this vision. People want to live, work, raise their families, invest, and play in our community. And Revelstoke is not alone in seeing poverty, the cost of living challenges, and the availability of housing as the most important social and economic issues we face as a community. Indeed, enabling affordable, appropriate housing and support for our most vulnerable citizens were the top social priorities in the ICSD update. So in closing this year, so you'll be looking at my work plan today, I respectfully ask that City Council consider how best to utilize the knowledge and expertise we have on the Social Development Committee. We are a resource here to support you in times of growth and change. And that's it.
Thanks very much. So questions from council? Mr. Duke.
I think this is exciting. It's good that we're getting to see this. This is a good piece of documentation for new people in the community. What's the goal, or how are you getting this in people's hands, newcomers to the community?
So once we get all the copies, I'll distribute it. So it'll go to WorkBC. The WorkBC office is often the key first point of contact for newcomers. And as well, the Visitor Information Center, the chamber, new people often come in there. Okanagan College. And then I sent a call out to my social sector email list, and I'm like, who wants copies? Interior Health wants 50. We're also, so I'll distribute it around the community, and then also with the realtors, with folks like property management companies, you know, it is a really good resource that we'd like to share. We do have 1,000 copies, so please, if anyone would like some, just get in touch with me.
I want to talk to people like Downey Timber and the resort that are bringing in workers.
Yeah. And we also have them electronically, so they'll be posted on the welcome-to-revelstoke.org website as well as my Social Development Committee website. And we also translated it into Korean and Simple Chinese, so those will be electronic. And we also we are translating it into French, and we'll have French hard copies as well. So it'll be French, English, Simple Chinese, and Korean.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, questions from council? Well, it sounds like you've got a lot on your plate and there's lots going on, and it's great to see. And I know that we are seeing positive changes because of the groups that are getting together and looking at the issues that we all have to deal with that are part of becoming a successful community. So anyways, thanks to you and thanks to the group.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Moving into old business, the first one, development services. Councilor Duke.
Yes, so I will move 8A, the development variance permit number DPP 2016-09 be approved.
Motion by Councilor Duke, seconded by Councilor Sauls. Discussion on the motion. We do have Mr. Strachan is available with a presentation if people have questions or so desire. This has come forward a few times now, so I'm not sure if people need a presentation or not. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Against? Motion is carried. And you got the against. Item B.
I'll accuse myself on the basis of a solicitor client relationship.
B, the development variance permit number DBP 2016-10 be approved.
And this is the Farrell Road. Motion by Councilor Duke, seconded by Councilor Sauls. Again, Mr. Strachan does have a presentation if people would like to see it. Is there any questions or discussion on the motion, comments? All those in favor? Against? Motion is carried. Councilor Nixon, Councilor Orlando. Would you mind,
Move forward, 8C1, the development services staff be requested to continue to participate in discussion with the Ministry of Energy and Mines and the Ministry of Forest, Lands and Natural Resources Operations, Ministry of Health and CSRD on the development of a regional dust control plan.
Are these all done separately?
Looks like it.
Yes.
Motion by Councilor Duke, seconded by Councilor Nixon. And Mr. Strachan, you have a presentation.
Your Worship, just briefly, this is a There was a meeting that a number of city staff attended with the ministry, a number of officials from different ministries. And this is, the result is that we're looking at the regional dust control plan. The recommendation is that the city continue to participate in that process. Further resolutions that are listed here relate to a map reserve that's in place. The city has over the area related to one particular pit site. This area is protected under a map reserve with the ministry, and staff recommendation is to remove this portion that the west side gravel pit was in, that was approved through development permit last year. However, the map reserve was identified this year as being a restriction on this property. The recommendation is to remove that map reserve from that portion of property to allow for that pit to continue and complete its process. The rationale being is there is a development permit that was issued for it. The property had a series of studies conducted on it, environmental as well as dust management. So the applicant did make some investment towards their licensing for this property, and at the last step in the process, the map reserve issue came forward. The remainder of the map reserve area, which covers a portion north up close to the dam, as well as the remainder of this area in question, it's recommended that this area remain within the map reserve and be reviewed as part of the OCP process. The only portion that's being recommended to be removed from the reserve is the portion adjacent to West Side Road that's related to this specific pit application. The remainder is being recommended to the ministry be retained as a map reserve and be reviewed as part of the OCP review process. Thank you, Your Worship.
Motion on the floor, discussion on the motion. Councilor Brothers?
And perhaps this goes to the other parts of the motion, but I'd like to get into, and stop me, it's better off doing it on the second part, but I'd like to get into and understand why we're really doing this, and the benefit to the community of doing this. The difficulty I have is we're suggesting that we keep the rest of it in the reserve, but we somehow carve this little piece out, and it's good to keep the rest of it in the reserve, but it's good to carve this one out. I'm having some difficulty. What's the benefit to the community of doing that?
Your Worship, it is the benefit of the community is access to sand and gravel. The ministry does not undertake inventories, so the last recommendation from council was to ask the ministry to conduct a supply inventory study, which they don't do. They respond only to markets, they respond to applications. So there isn't such a study that's going to take place, so there isn't a mechanism for it to come back to council for consideration of the release of the reserve. The previous recommendation was that the study be conducted, then come back to council with that information, and council then decide what to do with this reserve. But that's not going to happen, so they're asking us to come back to council, get some form of resolution on this reserve, whether it's to be retained or to be released. And this is this recommendation the staff have brought forward, is that there was this gravel pit application that began in January 2015, continued through its process and was approved by council in September of 2015. And when it went through the ministry's final process, came back to council for final approval when this map reserve then came forward as being issued. So it's simply that the process has gone through for this pit, and staff recommended that we supported for the insurance of access to aggregate in the community, as well as to recognize that this applicant had invested in the process and met all the requests made of the province as well as of council.
Can I just follow up on that, to the chair? We have another gravel pit up there. Is that not good enough? Why do we need a second gravel pit?
Your Worship, there is a number of gravel pits. There's access to aggregate. That question is yet to be answered. Like was mentioned, the ministry does not keep an inventory. They respond to demand in the marketplace. So as applicants seek to open pits, that's how they track the necessity for aggregate. So this additional pit is being proposed to be open, not because there's a study that's been conducted that identifies it. The particular applicant has identified that they have a market for this material and applied to the province in order to get access to that material and have obligations under that agreement with the province to utilize that material and sell it. So that's the response to the marketplace. We don't have hard empirical data, and neither does the ministry, on what the inventory is, what's available, and what the supply and demand is going to be in the future. To undertake such a study for the municipality would be a significant undertaking. We wouldn't recommend council go into that sort of business side of things on aggregate, considering the fact that it would be a very regional-oriented type of study, and maybe something that could be brought forward through the CSRD. But without participation of the ministry in some way, it would probably not be a very successful study. The focus on dust control and mitigation is where they've asked us to look at this point in time, and that's why this recommendation really comes forward, that staff participate in that process for regional dust control.
And just correct me if I'm wrong, but the only reason why this is back at the table again is because it's already been approved once at this table, and then the reserve was discovered to still be in place, and that's why it's come back.
That's correct, Your Worship.
Councilor Rogers.
Again, the last time, I mean, when this was passed, my understanding is that we had no choice but to approve this. Is it still the case that we have no choice but to approve this? And I guess a follow-up question is, if somebody else came by and said, you know, can I open a gravel pit in this reserve, would we say, okay, go at it? Or I mean, I really am struggling with why we are doing this. What is the need for the community? Because we haven't even defined that we have a need.
Your Worship, the reserve wasn't identified to staff when we brought forward this report to council in January of last year. It wasn't brought forward to staff until after the development permit had been approved. It wasn't brought forward to us until the spring. It was thought that the reserve had simply fallen off the table. The time it had it fall off the table, but it still was in effect. The ministry didn't even bring it forward to staff until the spring. So it fell through their process as well as not being identified as still existing, but it does. So now we're trying to deal with it after the fact. So you are correct, at the time when we brought this forward to council, we were unaware of the reserve. We were unaware of council's abilities under that reserve, but that reserve does exist. It doesn't mean that council has the authority through this reserve to simply stop things. It can be used as a tool to protect that land, but it's not a authority granted. The reserve is held in the city's name by the ministry. It's still their discretion whether they wish to honor the reserve or not. So it still falls with them and will be a recommendation to council. They've indicated that it would be unlikely that they would go against council's recommendation. So council could certainly today make a recommendation to the ministry that the reserve be remaining intact.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Of course, this motion that we're talking about right now is the development of a regional dust control plan. Okay? All those in favor? Motion's carried.
Bring forward 8C2, the province be notified the city of Revelstoke supports the removal of crown lands on West Side Road, provincial file 100155507, compromising plus minus 8.1 hectares from the provincial map reserve area held on behalf of the city of Revelstoke.
Motion by Councillor Duke, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Lund.
Your Worship, I find that this is myself as a councillor is in a really difficult position on this one because it's a fairly convoluted situation. We've sort of backed into the situation, this decision that's before us, and there's not really, in my mind, a very clear-cut way to do the right thing or get out of the situation that we're in. One of my concerns, and I'm sure several other councillors share this one, is that we're heading into an OCP review, which is goes hand in hand with a zoning bylaw upgrade. And as we've all become aware, our zoning bylaw is highly outdated. Was created in 1982 and definitely needs an upgrade. I think one of the responsibilities that's entailed in that, and just being on council, is taking a look at what is really the highest and best use of the land and what it should be used for. And I feel that when the issue of this gravel pit is approached from several different perspectives, I don't know if this is the best use for this particular piece of land. I think there's a lot of other things, as our community has changed a lot since 1982, that we would find. And I think if we approach, as we approach the OCP and then we go through the zoning bylaw again, I wouldn't be surprised if the land will change. Now, I'm listening carefully, I read the report carefully, listening to what Mr. Strachan has to say about, is this the right tool to be using to prevent something? And that's something that I don't have the answer to myself. But I do look back and see that I believe it was 2007, 2008 when this, I always forget the words for it, when this restriction was placed and this reserve was placed on this land. I think that was more or less an expression of maybe the same thing I'm saying from the council at the time, which is basically, we can think of better things to do with this land, so let's put a reserve on it because we haven't got our zoning bylaw put together. And to my frustration and I think a lot of people's in the community's frustration, we still haven't got those zoning bylaws in place. So for better or for worse, I'm not going to support this recommendation as it stands. I would like to see the reserve kept in place through the entirety of the properties in question, both parcels, until we can do a zoning bylaw.
Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Against? Motion's carried. Councilor Duke.
8C3, the province be notified that the city of Revelstoke requests that the remainder of the provincial map reserve area be retained pending further land use and inventory review and public consultation to be conducted during the official community plan review scheduled to begin in 2016.
Motion by Councilor Duke, seconded by Councilor Nixon. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Item 9, new business.
Your Worship, I'll bring that one forward. 9A, I move that council give notice of their intention to dispose of an interest in land by way of lease of buildings and a portion of property at 14958 Powerhouse Way of a lease of buildings and a portion, Powerhouse Road, City of Revelstoke, legally described as parcel B, C35091, and the southeast quarter of section 26, township 23, range 2, west of the 6th meridian, Kootenai Land District. Excerpt part included in plan 10185 as outlined in Schedule A of the proposed lease agreement for the purpose of a recreational facility and storage building to the Revelstoke Boxing Club for a 1-year term commencing September 1st, 2016 and ending August 31st, 2017.
Motion by Councilor Lambert, seconded by Councilor Sells. Discussion on the motion. Councilor Sells.
Your Worship, in the spring of this year, I had the Cadet Corps come and approach me, and I spoke with the manager of Public Works at that time about using this land for their project. However, a formal proposal didn't come forward as they have got temporary accommodation elsewhere, so they will be coming back to us in another time, and maybe we can look at that. But in the time now, we are in dire straits with the Revelstoke Boxing Club, and I would support that. Ask the councillors to support us moving forward on that.
Any more discussion on the motion? Councilor Lambert.
Your Worship, first of all, I'd like to thank staff for working on trying to find a solution to this problem, and as noted in the report, it is a temporary solution. At the Parks Committee, maybe a meeting or two ago, we had a quick discussion about where we're at in terms of our parks plan, and we're sort of still in zone. We probably a couple of years before we're approach taking another look. And I think this is a good solution to take, in the interim, and maybe this is something, as well as the need for other facilities that would come up when we engage in another parks plan process. So I will support this.
Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried.
Oh, yes, right.
Sorry, I'll do second part two, and that the advertisement include a notice of assistance to the Revelstoke Boxing Club for leasing that property for $1 per year, which is less than market value.
Motion by Councillor Landa, seconded by Councillor Sauls. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried.
I'll move 9B, the Heritage Alteration Permit number HAP 2016-02 be approved.
Motion by Councillor Duke, seconded by Councillor Nixon. And Mr. Strachan, you have a presentation.
Briefly, Your Worship, as noted, it is a heritage alteration permit for a single-family dwelling. Proposal it is part of the heritage designation area of the community, therefore requires the heritage alteration permit as part of the process. The application is in order to construct a garage at the rear of the property. The drawings within the package, the coloration and materials are designed to match and complement the existing heritage building. Thank you, Your Worship.
Questions, comments?
You understood what happened there? You get approved?
All those in favor?
I understand the other.
Motion's carried.
Thank you very much.
9C, that the owner is to plant 2 deciduous trees at the front edge of the property space at an interval of approximately 25 feet. Trees with a minimum 6 centimeter caliber, minimum 1.5 meter clear stem, and a large species of maturity similar to the other street trees in the area.
Motion by Councillor Duke, seconded by Councillor Nixon. And Mr. Strachan, you have the presentation.
Again, we have a heritage alteration permit application for an alteration to a heritage property within a designated area. The subject application includes a recommendation for 2 deciduous trees to be planted. You'll note that there's significant numbers of large deciduous trees in the neighborhood. They all have a similar age. So we're hoping through these types of applications we can find an opportunity to add additional trees into the inventory so that 25, 30 years from now, when those larger trees across the street have to come down for health reasons, we've got inventory that's become established in that time period. We can only ask for additional conditions when an HAP is used as a variance. So this particular one is using it as a setback variance. So we're using the trees as a mechanism to help mitigate any potential view corridor impacts of having the buildings closer to the property lines. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Strachan. Questions? Comments? Councillor Nixon.
Just a good plan to be replacing trees that, as the other trees are aging or become ill, that we're ahead of the game, that we're not going out and whacking a bunch of trees down and then replacing them all at the same time. That as development takes place, that we're following up and having trees planted.
Thank you. Any more comments? All those in favor? Motion's carried.
The next motion, declare conflict of interest due to vacation rental industry and a client relationship.
Who would like to take this one, Councillor?
Your Worship, I'll bring forward that the application to rezone Lot 12 of Section 24, Township 23, Range 2, west of the 6th Meridian, Kootenai District Plan, NEP 81080, 2041 Mountain Gate Road, from R1 Single Family Residential District to R1B Single Family Residential Vacation Rental District be approved.
And we can do a number 2 at the same time, can we?
Sorry.
Motion by Councillor Nixon, seconded by Councillor English. And Mr. Strachan, you have a presentation.
Very briefly, Your Worship, it's a vacation rental application for a property on Mountain Gate. The application includes 2 components. One is the secondary suite portion of the building, as well as the vacation rental will be in the main part of the building. So the applicant has indicated that they intend to continue to reside in the secondary suite, the lower portion of the building, and rent out the main floor of the building as a vacation rental component. They've applied for 2 bedrooms, vacation rental. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Strachan. Questions or comments? Yes, Councilor Nixon.
Just a comment, it's hopeful to hear that they plan on living in part of their home while they have a vacation rental in the other part.
And I guess that was going to be part of my question as well, can that be made part of the condition of vacation rental?
Your Worship, we can't make it a condition that the owner live in the secondary suite. The secondary suite must be residentially occupied. It can't be also rented out as a vacation rental. The bylaw only allows for 1 unit to be a vacation rental, so either the main part of the house is a vacation rental or the secondary suite, not both. So the secondary suite would remain a residential unit.
So it could be rented out monthly then?
It could be rented out monthly. It would be somebody who's a resident there, not vacation rentals. It won't become 2 vacation rental units. One will continue to be residential.
Councilor London.
Your Worship, through the chair, my assumption is that the secondary suite in question is legal secondary suite with a separate, of its legal suite.
That's correct, Your Worship.
Comments or questions on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried.
Your Worship, I'll bring forward the second part of that motion, that zoning bylaw number 2117 be read a first, second time, and staff be directed to schedule a public hearing.
Motion by Councilor Nixon, seconded by Councilor English. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Would you let our councilor in, Mr. Strachan? Thank you for the presentation. Economic development.
I'll report that, Your Worship, that the work plan for the social development coordinator for 2016-17 be approved.
Motion by Councilor Brothers, seconded by Councilor Sells. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And item F.
Your Worship, I'll bring that forward. Make a motion that staff be directed to continue the design process for the front wheels lift station, include the probable cost estimate from Stantec as revised from time to time in the budget considerations for the 2017 to 2021 financial plan.
Motion by Councilor Sells, second by Councilor English. Discussion on the motion. Councilor Sells and Councilor Brothers.
Your Worship, just on this, the reason this is coming back to us, I believe, is the increase in costs over the years from what we originally thought was going to cost. So the engineering department wanted to bring it to our attention that it's going to cost considerably more. And this is something that we do have to process and have to replace that lift station. Starting to wear out, we just want us to be aware that cost is going to be more than what we would consider.
Councilor Brothers.
Just a question for clarification, if I can. My understanding is that we thought this was going to cost $480,000, and it's now going to cost $785,000. And I guess my question would be, how are we so far off?
Well, I guess it all depends on how long ago the first estimate was done. And wasn't it 380 and now it's 785?
Yes, Your Worship. The other issue is that there's no allowance for putting a structure in, and so that 785 does include putting a roof over this facility, which is discussed in the report. So it's $125,000 there. The other part of this is just in terms of the overall cost of installation of this, I believe that the estimates that were previously developed, which were probably 4 years ago, really didn't look at how to build it. They looked at what the individual pieces would cost. And unfortunately, the site is a lot more difficult to build on than was obviously anticipated back there. So, yeah, it's something that we've got to work on and do better as we develop our construction cost estimates. One of the things that I'd like to work on is council and the community understands at what point in the process that cost estimate is being developed at. So those preliminary cost estimates are, often just based on other projects that we've done or other projects that consultants of ours might have done that we can ask about. As we move forward in the project and the details get tighter, we can get a better cost estimate. So that's where we're at with this now. I think when we started the process with Stantec, we had an idea that it would be more expensive than what we budgeted, but we wanted to be sure before we brought it back to council. And in terms of the timing of this, it was budgeted for 2016. Obviously, with this budgeted amount, we're not anticipating starting it in 2016 because we want to make sure that we've got the money to do it. And we want council to have the opportunity to decide whether this is a priority to do in 2017 or if we push it back a couple of years, which, as I say in the report, I don't believe there'll be major issues with delaying this project for another year or two if that were something that council decided to do. So during the budget process, we'll definitely talk about that.
But what we're approving here is doing the design and updating the costings, and it's going into a 5-year capital plan, and it's up to council during budget discussions to decide when it's going to have to bite the bullet on this thing.
Your Worship, the other part of that is there are opportunities coming up with federal government funding for clean water projects. Having a project sitting on the shelf ready to go for a grant application is a good idea.
All right, well, you just answered my next question is why are we doing this now, and that's the reason why. How much are we spending on this?
I don't have that number in front of me, Your Worship, but
Is it bigger than a bread box?
in terms of the remaining amount on the design, I'm guessing it's probably another $20,000 to finish up the design.
Is this DCC funded or?
Your Worship, I believe.
I better stop asking questions.
Yeah, I believe this is funded from some developments. I don't know that it's entirely a DCC project.
Thank you, that's fine. Thank you. Councilor Brothers.
Just following up on that, Mike, are we considering or are we suggesting that we not build the structure? Is that the way we're going, or is that a decision for council to make later on? Or
That's going to be a discussion to have for sure. I would say continue the design with the structure included. We can decide whether we're building the structure right now, if we just allow for this structure to be built over in the future. So you could build the foundations for it as part of pouring the concrete work, and that would save some money in the interim, and potentially public works staff could build it in the future. There are good reasons to build it. There are, in my mind, other reasons to not build it. Obviously, cost being the big one to not build it, but from just an operations perspective, it would make operating that lift station a much simpler, in an emergency situation, if you had to dig out, in a snowfall, instead they can just drive straight up and start working. So those are the sort of things where I'm having a hard time working out whether that's worth $125,000. That honestly, and that's part of the reason why I'm also kind of. I'd like to have a bit more time to discuss this with council as part of the budget process as well. Because I think there's some of those things where we have to reconcile these costs against, council's strategic plan of how they're going to approach certain issues, including workplace safety and operational convenience as things that might or might not matter to different levels.
Councilor Ronald.
Your worship, I guess my understanding is we're pushing this back to a future budget consideration as to what we are and aren't going to do, but it seems to me that what we're committing to at this point is more or less the whole thing, and maybe we'll have some other options. And the key word for me is options here. I'm assuming through the planning process that the upgrading of this lift station has been identified as a priority. But when I see, for example, that we may or may not need a roof and we can save $125,000 on that, you know, I don't know anything about lift stations. Are there other options that we can be asking for at this point? Because it more or less, it seems to me that we're going to be committing to $785,000, or at least heading down that path at this point, and might find it hard to return. So through the chair, Your Worship, my question is, what other options do we have at this point, assuming that we need to be doing a lift station at this location? And
Could there be options other than do you put a roof on it or not? Because at some point, you're going to have to redo the lift station. I think the whole key that I got out here is that we want to have a shelf-ready project. If the infrastructure program comes into place, we've got something ready to go, and that would give us 2/3 funding. And Bob's your uncle, but not having a project ready, shelf-ready, that you can use to apply means that you'll be paying the full shot, and then you'll be really deciding, can we afford the roof or not? But it seems like if infrastructure program is available and it's successful, in the long term, putting the roof on is probably better for everybody, including the equipment and the workers. Mike?
Your Worship, just on options that were looked at, we looked at whether we could avoid even putting in a lift station and trying to gravity the sewer from that area around, but that was going to be even more costly. But, you know, so we looked outside of the box in the design process. We looked at other locations, trying to work out if there was somewhere that was either a lot less costly to build or more desirable from a residential perspective, ways to different technologies, ways that we could work through this. In the end, this is the standard approach to a lift station project in today's world, and it's what I would have expected, aside from some magic breakthrough that we could have had. But we looked for those, and we just weren't successful in finding one that was going to be cost effective.
Any more discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Finance.
Your Worship, I'll bring forward that a grant in aid of $765.63 be awarded to the Revelstoke Minor Hockey Association, and the grant take the form of a credit to be used against the cost of ice rental at the arena for their Bantam preseason hockey camp on proof of financial need, and that such credit have no cash value.
Motion by Councillor Nixon, seconded by Councillor English. Discussion on the motion.
Your Worship, just to help out the Bantams with their preseason camp, and they've come forward in the last little while to ask for this, and I think it's a worthy cause.
Yeah, I agree. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Motion's carried.
Your Worship, I'll bring forward item H. I move that the report dated August 11th, 2016, prepared by the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Culture, be received for information.
Motion by Councillor Orlando, seconded by Councillor English. Discussion on the motion.
Your Worship, this isn't something that came through the committee. It's come directly from staff. As everyone's seen, it's a recommendation, or not a recommendation, I'd say a request for a reserve fund to send hockey players to Junior B National Tournament, and the discussion in the report is that it not be supported because it is an aid to a business, and the motion, I guess, reflects that as just to be received for information.
I would rather just have a motion to turn it down, like, and then it's dealt with. Just all we're doing is receiving it, and we're not making any, all we're doing is receiving information, we're not making any decision.
I'll make that motion, Your Worship.
We have a motion on the floor, if,
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Friendly amendment?
Can we amend that, or should we do that?
support the fund. Is that what the motion is?
That's correct.
And the seconder is okay with that? I can't remember who seconded it. Trevor. Everybody is clear on what the motion is now? Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Correspondence. And poverty reduction strategy support. Orlando.
Your worship, I read through this and the wording is a bit unusual in that it says they're going to sign us on regardless, so sort of a reverse letter of support, and I don't know how to respond to that. Maybe you would ask staff what the recommendation are and stuff.
And this is coming up, this is a UBCM recommendation as well, or I'm assuming it'd be similar. So, Councilor Lando?
And I believe the UBCM, is this actually on the UBCM agenda already, or is it?
We haven't even got it yet? Have we got the-
Joe, no.
Yes, yes, it is. And there's actually a link, there should be a link in that letter that should be live that leads to the resolution, which was supposed to be included in today's meeting package, but,
The resolution's here.
The resolution.
okay, the resolution,
Okay.
sorry. Okay.
All right. So me personally, I think we should just leave it as information unless somebody wants to make a motion, and we'll be dealing with the UBCM floor. And I think that this community's made strong recommendations on poverty reduction, and I don't expect that we'll be doing anything different when it comes to voting at UBCM. Unless somebody would like to take some other action right now. Sharon Shook, name change of Vernon Avenue. There's a recommendation to refer to development services. I would agree with that, or administration, and would be, either one would be appropriate to me. Who would like to make a motion? Councilor Nixon.
I'll make the motion to send this to development services and have staff check on the history of the name Vernon, how that came to be.
Seconded by Councilor Nixon. Seconded by Councilor Schultz. Discussion on the motion? Councilor Lando.
Your worship, do we not have a committee that looks into road name changes? I recall that when some decisions were being made about names up at the ski resort, that it was referred to a subcommittee or somebody that was responsible for that.
I don't know where a committee that exists at this point in time. There is a list of approved street names.
Okay, yeah.
There's a policy.
Policy, yeah, okay.
Not aware of a committee that exists anymore.
Motion is to refer to development services. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? Motion carried. Russell District Health Foundation letter support.
Your worship, I'll make that motion that a letter of support and principle be sent to the Revelstoke District Health Foundation for their funding applications to build a heliport in Victoria Hospital.
Motion by Councilor Nixon, seconded by Councilor Duke. Discussion on the motion. I think it's a good project, and I encourage council to vote in favor of it and the community get behind it. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Item D. Any action anybody would like to take on that? You want to declare conflict?
Yes. Should I step out or?
Absolutely, you should.
Yeah.
There may not be a motion, but you should step out anyway regardless. I'm assuming it's a client.
Yes, solicitor-client relationship, yes.
Councilor Nixon.
Your worship, can we send this to development committee meeting to staff for a response to that?
And that's a motion? Is there a seconder for that motion? Councilor Schultz, discussion on the motion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Somebody want to let my councilor in? And it's, communications is next. Does anybody have Finance Committee meeting of July the 12th. Check requisition report of July 2016. I guess I find it'd be nice if we could figure out a way that there was some kind of explanation of what they were for, because that's what we used to have. Just that I don't want to ask questions about, but I would like to know a few things. And does anybody want to bring any of the RCMP monthly community policing report? Fire Rescue Services second quarter report. Bylaw Enforcement monthly report. Questions from the media? David?
Not for me today, Your Worship.
No. Alex?
Yeah, I got a few actually. First, I guess, is when you were talking about the bears earlier, you mentioned stepping up to the bylaw enforcement for garbage. How has that actually been done, or how will that be done?
We've given instructions to commissioners bylaw enforcement to do more patrols, to give warnings, and actually handing out tickets for people that we have a garbage bylaw, then there's requirements. It's the number one attractant for bears, and so it's the number one area that we're going to be looking at.
Have their hours been shifted so they can check if people are putting their garbage out overnight or too early?
I don't know that.
Your Worship, we'll be looking at the schedule when the supervisor is back from holidays.
Yes.
And then my other question on the bears is, I know probably around when I first moved here, this would be like 5-6 years ago, there was, a push to get this, make Revelstoke bear smart. And from what I understand, the outstanding issue is kind of garbage, bear-proof garbage containers is the main outstanding issue to actually be certified. So have you guys discussed this at all, like to move forward on that?
Bear-proof containers have been discussed a lot.
Yeah.
And it gets down to how much do they cost? Do they actually work in our environment? And I think that if people complied with the garbage bylaw and looked after it, I don't think that we would need garbage-proof containers. But having said that, new developments that are coming in are required to have community garbage areas and bear-proof. But right now, we are not looking at upgrading the garbage cans to bear-proof cans.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Looking for a motion pursuant to section 9.1 A, D, and G, community charter to go in